Alright everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes video with Fat Phil, and today we're going to be talking about the raid. We've got two, not even updates, but we got two posts from the developers talking about some things that they're looking at with the raid. There is some good news here, there is some bad news, and I think they need to get some criticism for this communication because while there was some good news, it does feel like it took a little bit of time. So we're going to get into that, guys. Please let me know your thoughts down below. Like, subscribe, comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I love being able to interact with you guys, whether it's in the YouTube comments or in the Discord. So thank you guys again for all of that continued support. Let's give a shout to the channel members here as I get their graphics up. One moment, please. There we go. They should be up now. Thank you guys for keeping the faith, putting out, comments, Discord, everything. You guys are fantastic. Thank you so much for making this community what it is. If you're ever interested, link down below. More importantly, link to the Discord server. That's exactly where all the great conversations happen. So let's get in here. Let's talk about the raid. All right, so I actually want to pop over to the new forums, if it will let me. Come on. It's okay. It's okay. Where are we at? Of course, it's not going to allow me to get the forums. Where's my forums at? Come on. There we go. All right. So they talk about the B2 investigation update. This was the first one that came out. So they said, hi, this is a follow-up to our initial investigation on B2 potentially overperforming as the leader in the Battle of Naboo. After our investigation, we are currently fine with this data that we are seeing, and we won't make any adjustments. With that said, the team will continue to monitor B2's performance. So, here's the thing. This sentence and the sentence above it should not be in this post together. This is where they deserve some criticism. Like, how can you say that you're fine with this, that you're not going to make any adjustments, and then, oh, but we're going to keep an eye on it? Like, so, they're still investigating it, is the vibe that you're getting here, right? Right now, they're not going to make a change, but they could make a change in a raid or two. Now, I do want to give them a little bit of leeway, right? I'm being critical because I don't think it's fair to say this and this in the same post. They should have just said, we are continuing to monitor the situation. I think maybe what really should have been said is, we only have data from, 3 to 4 raids for most guilds, which the problem with these new raids, the new raid system, the problem with them is that you have a limited amount of time. When you look at the speeder bike raid, right? I mean, it was going on for a little bit, but you think realistically, you had 1, 2, 3, 4. So you went from November of 22 to, July of, 2020, like July 2024. So you had basically, 30 raids? 30, a little bit over, call it 30, I don't know, 30, 40 raids. I don't know the math, and I'm not going to count all them. But you have a very small sample size. So the longer it takes them to investigate and make decisions, it sort of makes the raid feel less, like you don't feel safe. So like 10% of the raid could be up already, right? That 10% of the time that we have this raid could be up already, or maybe even more, or, less, but somewhere around like 10% based on the total number of, raids that we've done. So if that's the case, like, and you're saying, oh, it took us, 10% of the time to figure this out, so 90% of the raid, but you've left it ambiguous. And that's the problem. If you said, hey, no adjustments, fine. But you're still kind of monitoring it, so I want to be critical of that. I think that is a big, I'm not a fan of that, right? And the reason why this is such a big deal is that the B2 team was, one, it was sold in a light speed bundle, right? Like, you sold this team. And if you're not aware of what this is, basically, you're using B2 in the leader slot because whenever an ally is damaged, he has a 40% chance to gain 100% turn meter. So, and that happens a lot because in the raid, there's constant AoEs. So he's basically always going to be taking a turn. You're gaining turn meter. If there's a damage to a separatist, he has a 40% chance to reduce cooldowns by 1. So not only is there a chance to gain turn meter, but to reduce his cooldowns, which then will allow him to spam this special ability with a cooldown of 3. So a very short cooldown as it is on his special ability. And why that is important is because whenever a separatist ally in the leader slot uses a special, all Sith allies are called to assist. So you put B2 in the lead with Sid and Maul, and they're constantly going to be assisting. So allowing that to continue, because B2 doesn't have a leadership ability. So for him to be in that leader slot, you're kind of sacrificing some additional benefit, but you're kind of spamming those specials. And I think kind of comparing this change to, say, what they did with C-3PO in the speeder bike raid, where initially C-3PO was the raid king because he was able to do damage in the raid, and then what was the other side of that? He could escape at the end of the battle, so you could spam C-3PO in every single team. They changed that and the reason they were able to change it is that C-3PO's kit inside of the raid was fundamentally different than his kit outside of it. Whereas with B2, the version of B2 that exists in the raid is the version of B2 that you're going to use in GAC, Territory Wars, Territory Battles, Conquest. It didn't change his kit at all. So I think they probably kind of ran into this problem where even if they wanted to make a change, they don't really have the capacity to do that. So again, overall, I think that is good that they're not changing it for the moment. Feel free to continue. But this sentence is a little bit, I don't know. It's kind of like they're shaking your hand and slapping you in the face at the same time. I hope that they kind of continue this thread of saying, hey, we're going to leave it as is. The second update that we got is for the early tiers in the Battle of Naboo. So Meathead came out and said, hey guys, the team has seen reports of players having difficulty with the lower tiers in the Battle for Naboo and will investigate. Now, this one I want to be much more critical of, with the same benefit of the doubt for them. But the comments here, guys, we destroyed them in the comments. Sorry, you can't see the screen capture here. We destroyed these guys in the comments, right? People saying all tiers should be investigated, fair play, only a month to realize, I've been tempted to quit because of the raid, the TM gain, right? B1 shouldn't have health. Guys, there's just insane amount of comments. So here's the thing. This one to me should have come out around the same time as the B2 update, the initial B2 update. The initial B2 update came day one, right? It came basically like the first week of the raid. This should have happened at the same time. Now, benefit of the doubt for them that, hey, this is a new raid. I guess you guys can't see let's go here. Let's just update that real quick. There we go. Hey, it's the first couple runs of the raid. Maybe people just aren't familiar with it. But I think now we kind of have a good idea of what we should and shouldn't be doing in the raid. So, all right, these early tiers are ridiculous. But I do think this came out way too soon. They should have been like, hey, we're going to take a look at this. Because the only thing I would maybe say is they knew this, and that this is their way of saying, hey, we're trying to fix it right now. And they're just kind of saying it in code. But I'm very critical of this one as well, because I feel like this is something that we've known for a while. And addressing it in this manner, to me, there could be a little bit more with this post. And overall, I'll say that it's good news they're looking at it, right? Take what we can get. It's good news they're looking at it. It is a little bit late. What I do want to say, in maybe probably what happened, if I had to guess, is my gut assumption is that Capital Games probably started with the difficulty of the raid in this range, the Relic 5 to Relic 7 range, and then kind of went down or went up. And the problem was they didn't go down enough, or they didn't go up enough. The difference for me, at Relic 5 to Relic 7, it's challenging, but it's not, you don't feel like you're playing, the raid at Relic 7 tier doesn't feel harder than Relic 5 necessarily. And the argument I'm making there is I use teams that compete at Relic 5 and I use teams that compete at Relic 7. It doesn't feel like the Relic 7 tier is that much more demanding because my characters are prepared for that, right? So it's kind of one of those where I'm not quite sure how I feel about it yet. The other thing I do want to point out, though, and I wanted to kind of make this comparison, that what I wish they would do with the raid is I kind of compare it to games I used to play in the past. Halo, Call of Duty, Gears of War. And I want to specifically point out Halo. That in Halo 3 particularly, you had easy mode, normal mode, heroic, and legendary. And I think Halo 3 had one of the best, I'd argue Halo 3 and even Halo Reach as well was another one that kind of had this, where the difference between difficulties was significant, but not ridiculous. That it didn't get to a point where you're like, oh my gosh, this is impossible. With games like Halo and Gears of War, not only did the enemies deal more damage, but they also got smarter. Gears of War, they didn't get quite as smart as they would in Halo. But yeah, I felt like Halo's difficulty was always kind of a little bit above the other games. The AIs would get smarter, they'd deal more damage. But it was always interesting to see, and they would take more damage. I think in this game, what they've kind of struggled with is that you can't really make the AI too smart where it would make the smartest decisions, because then it gets insane when you're increasing their health and protection pools and stuff. But I definitely think they need to find a way to tweak some of the difficulty to make it easier to score at lower levels, because I've seen a lot of reports on players being like, this is so stupid, like, how am I supposed to do this? I see people in the comments on the post saying, like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I missed the speeder bike rating. You're like, gosh, I can't say I hate that. So I want to know what your guys' thoughts. Do you kind of agree with this analysis? Are we not being harsh enough on Capital Games? I think I'm being very, pretty critical when I say that I think this is coming too late, and I think that these two sentences should not be put together, right? I don't think they should be put together, and I think this is a little bit late. The only point I'm willing to concede is that in the grand scheme of individual guilds, you don't have enough data. So and you say, oh, well, Phil, but every guild has done this raid. But if you take, 100 players and ask them to play through a mission once, and, 50 say it's, fine, 50 say it's impossible, well, you're going to want to run it again. So then what happens if, the same 50 say it's, 60 now say it's easy, or 60 say it's okay, and 40 say it's impossible, right? And then you get to, 65 say it's, fine, and 35 say it's impossible. So now you have that data to say, okay, there's somewhere that it's broken, where there's a point to where it's broken, that some players are just, it's way too hard, and for some of them it's kind of finely tuned or whatever. So I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if I've been rambling a little bit too much. Let me know your thoughts. I love you all. May the force be with you, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, my friends.